Okay, so we are going to make the motifs for the textile designs in this video, and what we are going to think about is also kind of the layout that we're going to use. Not exactly how seamless patterns, like a review of how to make all the seamless patterns, is going to be in the next video. We're going to get just up to that point. Okay, so when we're making motifs, I'm going to be thinking about using multiple motifs, using different scales of motifs, like in relationship to each other, right? Whether they're going to be like tossed, symmetrical, one directional prints, two directional prints, right? We reviewed all of those in a video in the very first week. Um, Yeah, those are all really good things to keep in mind, okay? We're also not going to use any gradients or brushes. Um, we use flat colors in Illustrator. That's why we avoid those in Illustrator. When we're making repeating patterns, traditionally, we want the colors to be completely flat, just solid colors. And that has to do with, leaving more variety in your ability to print. That's also why we limit your colors when we assign you projects in textile design, because traditionally, if it were being converted to screens, to screen printing, I mean, you you would need to have a limited number of colors simply because you can only have a limited number of screens, right? So that's why we limit your colors. That's also why you should stay away from gradients and brushes because they can accidentally add thousands and millions of colors. Um, and yeah, just live in the limitations of this project and really thrive there. So I am going to that's the old one. Here's the real screen. I am going to create a new document, 11 by 17. That's what we work at, and that's where I like to keep in mind the scale. It's good practice to draw at the scale that you think the motifs might be at in the end, even though technically we can scale to any size because it's in Illustrator, so it's a vector program. So that's part of the benefits of a vector program is that things can scale to any size uh, without getting blurry. Like if it were a raster image made of pixels, if you scaled it up too far, it would get blurry. You probably experienced that making your mood boards. Um, so I am going to grab the image that I made last week, the mood board I made last week, and I'm going to start drawing over some of those motifs. But if you had motifs that you had saved on like a Pinterest board or images that you loved that maybe weren't high quality enough to include on your mood board, bring those in here and just start, maybe tracing over some things. Maybe you aren't tracing and you're drawing from your mind, and we shouldn't be tracing anything like too exactly, especially if it's not our own image. But just like as a way to kind of get form going and practice using the different drawing tools, I think tracing is a great option. So I'm just going to drag this JPEG in there, and there it is. And what I'm definitely going to do is if I'm tracing over anything, I want to make sure that I put this image, I'm holding shift so this scales correctly. I want to make sure that the uh, the image is on its own layer. So you find your layers panel, and remember, if I'm ever talking about a panel that is, you know, that you don't have over here or you can't find, you can always go to Window and then find the panel layers. We're going to make a new layer, and this is seems to be a symbol for new throughout Adobe. In some places you'll see this, in some places you'll see another symbol which is very similar, but plus, and now we have a second layer, and that's where we'll draw, but on layer 1 we're going to double click on it and we'll choose template. And template automatically locks and dims the image. And if you wanted to, you could just lock it or you could just dim the image, but we want to lock the layer. If you ever want to unlock it, you can actually just click right there to toggle lock on and off. But now we won't accidentally draw on this layer. I actually want this to be a little bit bigger. I don't need to trace the girl, I just want to trace the images. So I know I want them to be like at least that big, and I can always make them adjust their scale later because they're vectors. So we'll lock that again. And I'm also, before I start drawing, going to bring in my swatches that I saved last week in the discussion about color chips and colorways, right? So we saved some color chips from in Photoshop and we brought them into Adobe into Illustrator and vice versa. But we're just going to load them in. So I found my swatches panel, and then at the bottom of this panel, and some other panels have this too, there's a library menu, and you can generally save the options that you have visible in a swatches panel. You can save them as a library, or in some of these other panels too. But we have a library saved that we want to load, so we're going to choose that and choose other library. And then I saved it in my, yeah. And there they are. And if we, so they, these libraries pop up in like their own little panels. And, you know, you could drag them in here and have them live in here if you wanted to. Or if we select all of these, select one, hold shift, select the other, and open our swatches panel, we can just drag these into the swatches panel. And there they are. And if we wanted to, we could also make a little folder for them. Shift. I accidentally hit caps locks. All right. There we go. So there's our little color swatches. So I am going to start drawing, and I'll probably time lapse through this. If you want a breakdown of how I draw any of these, let me know. Hey, it's the next day. I forgot to record an outro video for that video, but thank you for watching and watch the next video in the series to learn how to take those and then make them into a textile design. Awesome.